Hey, everybody. That's right. You caught me off guard there. It's Natalie McKenzie with The Whole Woman, and it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. So, it's Quaran-Tea time. Today, grab that drink, hit that share button, invite a friend, because we have music industry mogul, real estate investor, master promoter, and marketer, record exec of the year, the one and only Benny Pough. Make some noise, hit that share button, throw up some hearts. Hey, Benny.
What's happening, Natalie?
Cheers. Here's to you, my dear. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was listening to your introduction and I heard all of that and I was like, well, who's she bringing on?
Man behind
like, yo, that warm-up was phenomenal.
I don't know. You want to take me on the road with you?
No, listen, you coming. Done. Sold.
What a joy to have you, Benny.
Thank you.
How have you been?
Been phenomenal, Natalie, considering all that's going on. But for the most part, I think is African Americans, we've been quarantined like all my life. So, this is just a repurposed look at it kind of thing,
like
time
that.
for reflection.
Oh, so
you're a reflection team.
You're going to put your marketing spin on this. I see it.
Reflection team.
Reflection team. Awesome. Benny.
Yes.
All that stuff I just said, all those great accolades, the trophies, the awards, I'm sure you have a t-shirt and a mug to go with it all. But who is the man behind all that? At The Whole Woman, we like people, not titles.
Well, you know what? And it's so interesting you say that is because I never lived my life with a title, right? And that anyone who knows me that's not my introduction. My introduction isn't what I did. It's who I am and where I'm going. I'm Benny Pough, right? Regardless of what the circumstances are. And what does that mean to people who don't know me? Is that I'm going to give you the best of me. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be truthful. And I'm a person of really deep-rooted commitment.
What's the biggest influence on you, Benny? Because those are some, you've said it quite lightly, but those are some heavy charges to live your life by. So what went into the making of the man we look at today?
I'll start with my mother. And obviously life starts with a mother. So it's not unique to me, right? Right. But more importantly, my mother was a driving force, and my father, they had a very interesting 1-2 approach on rearing my sister and I. But what was really instrumental in my development was my mother taught me early about, finances. Like, I'm old enough to have had a Christmas club account. And I remember her just walking me to the savings and loan place to make my deposit. And never really knew what the value of like taking $1 every week to deposit, right? And as you grow older, you realize how money really works and doesn't work. But what it did actually do was show me, how to value savings and how to value investment. She was also very instrumental in making sure that, education was paramount. And that was a really driving force for me to strive and do real good along the way as well. But more importantly was rooting us in spirituality, right? Because what you say and what you do is so important, and how you achieve is differently depending on what's rooted inside of you. And my conviction has always been Christianity. So, that's what I rely on and what I fall back on, even when times are good and when times are bad.
So you have a mother that taught you how to save. And you talked about us being African Americans, and then you talked about investing, and you talk about the power of money and understanding what happens when you save on a regular basis. And of course, we're talking about now compound interest working for us when we start saving. That's an interesting cornerstone in a Christian family, in a Black family, and a Black man. Tell me how you have applied that to your adult life.
Oh, man. So I started in real estate when I first started in the music business, right? Because I realized there were not many African-American salt and pepper hair black men walking around music companies, right? The music business is by far, a business for younger black men, right? And obviously, um, our counterparts have a different expiration date to say, right, in the business. So when I first got in, I realized, like, you know what, there wasn't going to be a gold watch for me, right? There wasn't going to be a parade for me. There wasn't going to be a any kind of pension, which, obviously growing up, pensions were the thing of the time. Like, you worked hard at a job, and at the end the job took care of you. Music, you have to either make your own way, or it was great. Champagne, bubbles, parties, and that's it, just memories. So at that point, I grew up in a five-family house where I saw my parents. We lived in the attic. And in the winters, it was really cold. And then the summer was really hot because it didn't have um, any installation. So when the owner of the house, who lived on the main floor, she went to sell a house, she gave my parents the first opportunity to purchase the home. And at that point, they didn't have enough money, but so what she did, she held the paper. And that means she actually gave them a loan, and, they paid her. So my mom, she worked at the post office, so she had um, uh, excellent benefits. And my father is, I call him like the Black MacGyver, right? Because he's the kind of man that he can do anything, build anything, solve any problem. And they kind of had like reverse roles, right? Like he was a real manly man, but he decided, because he was so good with his hands, and everybody would call Ben to, fix my roof, fix my plumbing, wire, do some wiring for me, do all of those things. So he hustled, right? And what I realized with them putting me through school and how we lived was, it was before I even understood the terminology, let your money work while you sleeping. So they were able to afford us a lifestyle, because ultimately the house paid for the mortgage, the income, as well as it also kicked enough profit for us to go through school, have vacations, and do all the other things. And benefits were already covered because my mom was at the post office. So that in turn lit my switch to realize, in music, right? At some point I have to, and as I talk about, I have a book that's coming out, two plan A's. And I believe in that. Like, you just can't work a job and not have an alternative, right? And you have to be willing to commit your time to the things that you're really, really good at in performance. So in working a job and in a career, I also built my real estate portfolio. So at one point, my wife and I, my business was at 130 units. We owned a city block. We're now just shy of 100, and we've been managing that for over 20 years. So that was like a very key nugget in realizing, like, showing up at work, I never was fearful because I always had an alternative, right? I always had the power in my hand because I had my own business, right?
That so you had a plan.
Yep.
I love it. So, Benny, is your mom still with us?
Yeah, she's my mother's still alive. She has Alzheimer's, and that's something I think T.D. Jake said it once. I was listening to one of his sermons, and he was talking about his mom's, or as an interview, and he said, the thing about Alzheimer's is, like, you watch a person die over 1,000 times, right? And what it does, though, right, and how we have approached it is kind of differently. Like, because of the religious background, my mother, she never really was present in the day. She always thought about, the thereafter, right? And so now, being with her, touching her, seeing her, understanding her, but she instilled a lot. Like, we don't feel sorry, like we don't feel absence. Obviously, not having the opportunity just to speak and get that back, you miss that. But knowing that the greater good for her is always being with her Lord was, is what is so keeps us going.
That's beautiful, Benny. So this is interesting because I'm learning something about you today that I didn't know before. And to know that you had that real estate mogul
No, I wouldn't say all of that.
like that in your home, no, back then she was one smart woman because
Yeah,
most people didn't even know how to pay their mortgage. She not only was paying a mortgage, but she was having the house pay itself. And that's when it's
absolutely,
a real asset because now
absolutely,
the cash flow is coming to you. It's a
absolutely.
beautiful thing. So, Benny, tell us about school. Where did you go to school and where did you grow up?
I grew up in White Plains, New York, which is the suburbs outside of Manhattan. You know, if I was just talking to anybody outside of New York, I would be strictly from New York, right? Just to claim New York. So all the local people know White Plains is not New York, right? So yeah, I'm a suburban kid, right? But we was from the hard side of White Plains, right? But yeah, so I grew up there all my life, born in Valhalla Hospital, and attended and graduated St. John's University with a double major, communication and marketing.
Okay, so you're not too far off from where you started.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard a little bit about your, comedian skills and being a real funny guy. How did you get into the music business? Because now I'm sure no uncle called you up and gave you a seat in the office.
Wow, you know what? It's an interesting story, right? It's a true story, and I believe in frequency and that things happen because they're supposed to happen, right? And some things you don't plan to happen, but they do. So while in college, I was stand-up comic, right? Obviously, I wasn't really good at it, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, right? I'd be doing something different. Nothing wrong with, I don't want the women coming at me talking about like, yo, what you mean talk about Natalie's show? Natalie's show hot. Like, what's wrong with you? So no disrespect to Natalie's show. I'm only talking about me and my talent, my skill set, right?
Hold on. Let me just tell my producers, call up Chris Rock
Yeah.
next week, all right?
Yo, listen, get them together. But I was doing stand up, and Deidre Tate, who was the local promoter at Motown Records, actually booked me for a show at the Cellar. I think that's on the fringe of Harlem, 96 in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the show, she was like, Benny, they used to call me Benny B back then. Benny, what you doing, right? And I just graduated, and I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't write my resume, anything, figuring it out. Like most people, just figuring it out. Like I've accomplished something, so now what's next? And she said, well, why don't you come and be my intern? So not knowing, nobody ever taught us from where we come from what an intern was. So I was like, yeah, I'll take it, right? I didn't know what no intern was. So I went down to Motown Records, and the crazy thing was my background was in sales. So I sold like, financial products. I sold cutlery door to door. I sold fax machines. So I did all of that. So when I never forget the first day I walked into Motown, I had a 3-piece suit on, wingtips, anti-shade case, and everybody's looking at me like, yo, who is this Herb? Right? Like, yo, is this the tax man? Because that wasn't the culture, right? It was my culture, but it wasn't the music business culture, right? Oh, and I realized at that point, working with Deidre, that she gave me some tasks because I started in the college promotions department, and she asked me to process her T&Es, right? Her traveling expenses. Once again, young African-American kid, have no idea what a T&E is, but I had a unique skill set because I typed like 60 words a minute, upright, home row, all of that, right? So, I had the administrative thing together. So she asked me to put together, reconcile all of her stuff. And I kind of felt a little nervous, like, because as I'm putting all the money together and taping the receipts and all of this stuff, and went to her gingerly, like, Deidre's like, should I be looking at your money like this? And she was like, no, baby, this is my expenses. I was like, explain, kind of like explain. I've been doing the work, but I don't really know what it is. She said, well, they pay my car, they pay my gas, they pay my insurance, they pay my phone bill, they pay my cable bill, they pay for airfare, and I've been hanging out with her, and they pay for my dinners. I was like, oh, that's the job I want to do, right? Because at this point, I realized, like, you know what? The sales jobs I had didn't have those perks. And I wasn't a music guy. Like, I sucked in instruments. Like, in high school, I sucked. Yeah, like it just didn't work out for me. So I'm not a singer or a writer or any of those things, right? But I realized in music, it was exciting because it was a very untraditional product that you had the opportunity to exploit. And just the beauty of watching like people go in like a 12-week period from being absolutely nobody to somebody, and you had your hands in creating the excitement and the momentum, like blew my mind. And I fell in love with music at that point, not from just the selling aspect, but how you could actually make someone's dream come true. And that was very, very rewarding moment for me. And like the connection between the creatives and the business has been the driving force for me in entertainment, because I understand what it is for creatives and what they give up.
And so we fast forward to you really making it to the top of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
You have major accomplishments, you get all the awards, and then you decide that you're going to do something for Benny.
So it's an interesting story, after and I'm super excited about where I'm in my life. After decades of committing myself, creating some of the biggest stars in the world, promoting some of the biggest albums, signing some great talent. Had an amazing run at Def Jam, touching a lot of stuff there, from Young Jeezy, Rick Ross, the return of Mariah's project. Was a part of that. Rihanna, Jay, and then going on to Epic Records, where I signed Future, brought Gotti, signed Cash Out, which was super exciting. And then transitioning to Rock Nation, I realized, like, at this point in my career, thinking about all of what I've contributed to music, right? And music has definitely done well by me and given me an opportunity to, one, put together some amazing teams, right? Because no one does it by themselves. Mm-hmm. To be a part of like some really legendary artists in the business, right? Being a part of their marketing and promotions is super exciting as well. And changing lives, right? Like being an African American in the boardroom of a business that we don't really get to the top of the food chain, and being at the top of the food chain was an accomplishment more than anything else, because when you're in those positions, you can help others come through the door, right? So that was part of what I thought to be very special moments. But then I realized, like, you know what, I've learned a lot, I've invested a lot, and now I want to take a step out on my own and reap the benefits of all that has in the discovery process of finding talent, promoting talent, and marketing talent, after having this long education of music business, right? So I started my own label called D.Verse Media. We sign talent, we do distribution, and we also we put out films. So we're in the media business at this point, and super excited about where I am.
That's very exciting, Benny. What can we expect from D.Verse? And yeah, let's start there. Tell us what we can expect from D.Verse this year or in the coming.
I just signed this incredible young talent during the pandemic, actually. March 7th, which was, I think the pandemic was starting. I went to Kansas City, fly in to look at this incredible young male singer. And from there, I drove from Kansas City to St. Louis, right? Flew from St. Louis into LA, where I'd set up a meeting to meet this young lady. Her name is Paris Gatlin. She's an incredible singer from Jackson, Mississippi, right? And she happened to be in LA, and I said I had to meet her, right? Because started getting nervous at that point. and like, yo, people like come home and, yo, folks is like, you better get off the road. You know, the bug is out here, all of that stuff. And I'm like, yo, you know what? Yo, I'm prayed up. I'm going, right? Because when my friend sent me the tape, well, sent me the video, I listened and was like, yo, she's special, right? And I've been in those moments. You know, I've seen those artists. I've heard those records. And I was like, you know what? I got to go because time is really of the essence. We don't know what's going to happen post. And like, you know what? I got to seize it right now. So we were able to sit down, come up with an agreement. She's the first artist on my label. She's going to start recording next week. But I think she's definitely going to be, you know, a staple in households coming. Her name is Paris Gatlin. And remember, you heard it here first.
That's what I want to know.
You heard it here first.
Tell us the name.
Cool to you. All right, you got an exclusive.
Hey, it's Quaran-Tea time.
Quaran-Tea.
All right, we're gonna look out for her.
Yeah,
Benny, all this is happening. I know your life moves at warp speed. What was the most life-changing experience you've had, and how has it impacted your life today?
Wow, you know, I could look at that in several different ways, right? On impact, right? Which is the title of my book, right? So maybe we should go there on impact. So 6 years ago, I was in a near death fatal car accident that almost took my life. Hit a tree at 90 miles an hour and lived to see another day, right? I had massive injuries, major concussion, L3, L4 vertebrae fracture, bulging disc in my back, internal bleeding, bled half the blood out of my body, hit the tree so hard that it lacerated my liver and also severed 2 feet of my small intestine, right? But what came out of that, more importantly, right, was God's way on telling me that I had a book in me. I had a message to tell. And that's where On Impact was actually birthed, the story. So it's an inspirational, motivational business book that brings you from my life at 11 years old, delivering newspapers to now being on the Natalie McKenzie show, which is current day on where I am, right? And it opens up with the accident, which obviously there's more details in that. And then there are 6 chapters. Impact is an acronym. It stands for ingenuity, mastery, positioning, authenticity, communication, and teamwork, right? And then it closes out with.
Say that again for us, Benny. I'm sorry.
Huh?
Impact is
ingenuity, mastery, positioning, authenticity, communication, and teamwork, right? So then it closes out with the accident in modern day. And in each chapter, end of each chapter is a takeaway on the chapter, and pretty much how Benny did it, I can do it too, kind of thing, right? And it's going to be exciting, dropping that at the first quarter of next year, and looking forward to, you know, moving around and talking about it, webbing about it, and changing lives, more importantly, right? I want to be able to let people know that there's hope, you know, that there's change, you know, not only just from a financial perspective, but a spiritual perspective, right? And you never give up, right? And I remember those moments being in the hospital where I wanted to give up, right? And thinking about the moment of impact on the tree, right? And everyone has their own impact, right? And it's how you handle and you maneuver through those moments is what's most important, right? And we'll hold back some so that you guys can come on and march and get a little bit of it.
Well, I don't know what I'll be doing next year, and I'm certainly hope it's not Quaran-Tea time. Yeah. But if we're talking about things in this type of setting, we definitely want to talk to you again when the book is out.
Oh, that's done.
So that's ingenuity, mastery,
position, authenticity,
of course,
communication, and teamwork.
I love it. I love it, Benny. But of course, nothing is ever face value with you. What is it? What is your passion?
Oh man, what do I love to do? Love to run, right? I don't run as fast as I used to now. injuries, but it doesn't hold me back. But I enjoy it just for the freedom, right? Being in nature, it's an opportunity just for me and the creator to be in touch, right? So I love that. So now I either run or I walk, right? I love, family time, right? I love, just watching them grow, right? Watching them learn, right? I love giving, right? I love giving to people that I know, right? All that I have, I want to leave every bit of information that I have to anyone that's willing to ask, right? I love to talk, believe it or not. Believe it or
No,
not, right?
no.
Just enjoy myself on the phone talking at times, right? I don't even call anybody. I just get on and play both ends like, hi, Benny. Well, hi, right?
Let's
But
talk.
yeah, and more importantly, like, I just love what everyone else is. I mean, I like to cook, I enjoy wine. Like, I love a great Cabernet. Like, I'm OD'd on that. Giving that up for the year though, but
The entire year?
the entire year.
I'm checking back with you in 2 months, Benny.
The entire year I gave it up. There's a story behind that.
Tell us.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, which I realized the end of last year, I wanted 2020 to be a very impactful, special year. And just like anything else, whether you believe in, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, all the books are, about love, faith, hope, and sacrifice, right? And I figured for me, for 2020 to matter, I had to give up something I loved. And there were some things that was off limit, right? Right? Some things were off limit, right? But
Hey, God.
yeah, right. But I decided, like, you know what? I love wine, so I'm going to give it up. And it's been an amazing year. I think that it's been extremely fruitful. The opportunities, the work, and just the relationships, and just seeing life differently, right? From a clearer lens, so
Ooh.
to say. But that's really it.
But they say obedience is better than sacrifice, right?
Oh, okay. Well, heard it here on the Natalie McKenzie Show.
I wouldn't mean my wine. Benny, you are an absolute pleasure to chat with. I always
Oh,
enjoy you. What's your give back? You're getting so much feedback. You've got a fan club out there. Oh, hey, Brienne. And
oh,
folks are waiting on your book, okay?
okay.
So make sure we get that book next year. What's your give back, Benny?
It's to the youth, man. It's to the youth. It's to the women. It's to minorities. It's to the young brothers. It's about, like, giving all that we have. What hopefully that we can do as minorities, right? And especially as a generation, I'm much older than you, Natalie.
Yeah.
Realize what's really important is for us to pass the knowledge, right? And unfortunately, I think what we don't do, we just hold on to what we know for us. And now it's time, in these times, right, where people are now out of work, where people now are going hungry, where people now are lost in faith, that everybody who is somebody that means something, be someone to someone is what's most important. So that's what my gift is, being someone to someone.
Thank you so much, Benny. Is there a charitable organization or foundation that you are particularly fond of that maybe we could get our viewers to support in your honor?
Well, what I'm actually looking at a couple of different opportunities. I'm now on the Prison Fellowship Board, but I'm a big giver to churches, right? Small churches, right? TCC would be one, right? Like the pastor there he's Pastor Tyrone is an amazing pastor down in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Probably 4 or 5 different churches I give to. Black churches needed now. Churches needed it overall, right? And I always believe, as what, the charity for me goes there. Like, there's always organizations that you can, and everybody gives how they do, but I'm about the community, right? And people that are actually in the community giving back to the community. So, I'm a big fan there, and also Christchurch is another one. If I didn't say that, I'd get killed. But anyway.
Christchurch and TCC.
Yep.
Benny Pough, how can we get a hold of you? And how do we follow you on social media so we can keep tabs on impact?
All socials are at Benny Pough, Pough, and my website is bennypough.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. He signed, tell us her name again.
Paris Gatlin.
Woohoo! It's Benefew live and direct, music mogul, marketer extraordinaire, comedian, but most important,
Failed comedian, Natalie. Failed comedian. Don't get me hot out here.
we're working it.
Yeah, failed comedian.
Most importantly, Benny, we love your heart. Thank you for having a giving heart. Thank you for lifting as you climb, and thank you for being such a generous soul. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
All right.
So today is Friday, everybody, and yes, it's 6:30, but I have the liberty of taking the time to say that I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge what is currently happening in this great nation of ours. My heart is broken, I'm saddened, and I refuse to be angry, and I refuse to be frightened. So I am appealing to all of us that we pause and think before we speak and think before we act. I personally do not like hunting as a sport because I think it is unkind to look a living being in the eye and then kill it. So you can imagine where I come out. On the placing of one's knee on an individual's neck and holding it there long enough until that person dies. But there's a good old expression, and that expression is daylight is good disinfectant. So I'm grateful this happened in daylight. I'm more grateful that so many passerbys decided to record this event. I am so sorry for the loss of this young man in Minneapolis. My heart bleeds for his mother and his sisters, and my heart bleeds for the community that is now in turmoil. I will pray for the 4 officers, and as a matter of fact, I always pray for our police officers because I am still naive enough to take comfort when the cops are present. In keeping with that, Monday's guest will be Sergeant Lynette Shaw. And we're going to be talking about de-escalating hot situations, policing in America, being of the darker hue in America, and how we can bridge the gaps. Here at The Whole Woman, we believe in bridging gaps because we all bleed red. We're human beings. We're not a race. I'm Natalie B. McKenzie. I am The Whole Woman. I wish you enough life to live, enough joy to share, enough love to give. I wish you enough. Good night.